Taylor Swift was said to be entering a new phase in her career when on August 11th she officially revealed her 12th studio album, entitled The Life of a Showgirl, and according to those who closely observed her announcement, the moment was not only about the record's title but also about subtle hints she dropped regarding its creative direction. Most notably that she appeared ready to step aside from her long-standing production partner Jack Antonoff, which immediately set off widespread conversation among her fans who had grown used to Antonoff's influence shaping her music for more than a decade. And as soon as the news spread, her followers noticed that she had also been engaging with social media activity in her carefully curated manner, particularly liking posts that drew connections between her new work and Lady Gaga's earlier art pop era. Something that many interpreted as deliberate because Swift had built a reputation for never randomly interacting online. So the speculation gained fuel that Gaga herself might somehow be involved in this new record. And one fan even confirmed that their post had been liked by Swift, the post itself highlighting how the album's announcement coincided perfectly with the 12th anniversary of Gaga's single Applause, a track that already carried significance within Swift's community since it had played an important role in the era's tour introduction playlist. And this rare social media move instantly intensified theories of collaboration. For while Swift and Gaga were not known for regular public exchanges, there had been a moment during the summer of 2024 when the two publicly expressed admiration for one another, feeding the idea that professional work together could be on the horizon. And this impression only deepened when Gaga released her track How Bad Do You Want Me, which many listeners described as distinctly reminiscent of Swift's style, even to the point that some suspected Swift's voice was faintly included in the background vocals, though that was never confirmed. And the resemblance was strong enough that fans created viral edits imagining the two stars on a remix together. So when Swift later dropped hints linking Gaga to The Life of a Showgirl, the pieces seemed to fall into place, leading to a widespread belief that Gaga might indeed feature on the new project, which left her supporters eagerly awaiting further proof. Subscribe if you want to stay alert for the next major clue. Meanwhile, observers also noted that beyond the excitement about a potential Gaga connection, another equally significant storyline was unfolding, namely the suggestion that Jack Antonoff might not be involved in this project at all. A revelation both shocking and intriguing since Antonoff had been central to Swift's sound for over 10 years, contributing to landmark albums such as Star 1989 Star, Reputation, Lover, Folklore, Evermore, Midnights, and The Tortured Poets Department, each of which bore his imprint. And the news that Swift could be moving forward without him was interpreted as a bold creative departure, an intentional decision to explore new ground. And even before she publicly announced the album, some of her most dedicated fans had already sensed that this body of work would mark a major shift, though few had predicted the specific possibility of Antonoff's absence, which later became one of the most discussed aspects of the rollout. At the time of the reveal, the only concrete details officially available were the album's name and its association with the color orange. And soon speculation began that this color choice was connected to her romance with Travis Kelce, since orange is a combination of the Kansas City Chiefs' team colors, and the connection was reinforced by the fact that Swift had chosen to announce the album on Kelce's podcast New Heights, an act that made fans believe the project might reflect her happiness in that relationship, a stark contrast to earlier albums which had documented heartbreak, longing, or melancholy introspection, and the celebratory, romantic mood being suggested by these hints seemed consistent with the name The Life of a Showgirl, a title that evoked spectacle, performance, and joy rather than pain or sorrow. Commentators emphasized that when viewed against the backdrop of her recent discography, the change was striking, since The Tortured Poets Department in 2024 had focused heavily on her turbulent fling with Maddie Healy, Midnights in 2022 had been reinterpreted as a breakup record, and Folklore and Evermore in 2020 had leaned into wistful storytelling, all of which were unified by Antonoff's production, so the idea that this new album would break that pattern suggested not only a new thematic direction, but also a new sonic identity, possibly influenced by different collaborators. And if Gaga were truly among them, the partnership would mark a first-time creative meeting between two of pop's most influential figures. Subscribe now so you do not miss when the collaboration is finally confirmed. Reports also explain that Swift's fans had long grown accustomed to her using symbolism, deliberate timing, and subtle gestures to signal future plans, So the fact that she liked Gaga-related posts and announced her album on the anniversary of Applause was perceived as intentional rather than coincidental. And this understanding only fueled the community's conviction that these were not random occurrences but carefully chosen markers pointing toward what was to come, leaving everyone in a heightened state of anticipation, dissecting every playlist update, every color scheme, and every cryptic online action, as they awaited more concrete details like track names or featured artists, and the constant speculation itself became part of the excitement, sustaining momentum in the weeks that followed. Critics noted that Swift's ability to generate such levels of discussion with minimal information demonstrated her mastery of modern pop storytelling, since she could spark global conversation with a single like or a carefully timed announcement. And that flair for narrative control was on full display here. With The Life of a Showgirl already shaping up to be one of her most talked about projects even before a single note had been released. Fans who had followed her career closely reflected on how each of her previous eras had been carefully constructed, from the pastel palette of Lover to the muted tones of Folklore and Evermore, the glittering midnight blues of Midnights, and the grayscale aesthetic of the Tortured Poets department. So the new association with orange was immediately taken as symbolic of warmth, energy, and a new face centered on passion and vibrancy, and the link to Kelce's football team colors only reinforced the idea that this was a record of love and renewal, not heartbreak and despair. This interpretation was strengthened by the setting of the announcement itself, with Swift choosing her partner's podcast as the platform, an intimate and personal context compared to the grand rollouts of her earlier work, suggesting a desire to anchor this era in real-life joy and connection rather than abstract sadness or fictional tales. Analysts pointed out that whether or not Antonoff's absence was permanent, the decision to step away from him for this project indicated a willingness to challenge herself musically, to resist the comfort of familiar formulas, and to embrace new sounds that might surprise her audience, which aligned with her history of reinvention across genres, from country beginnings to pop dominance to indie folk experimentation, and now to what might become a theatrical, showgirl-inspired spectacle. Observers also remarked that the potential inclusion of Gaga would only heighten the sense of theatricality, since Gaga herself was known for bold, extravagant artistry, and a union between the two could create songs that balance Swift's lyrical storytelling with Gaga's flamboyant production style, potentially redefining the boundaries of pop collaboration at this stage in their careers. Swift's fans, often called Swifties, were said to be already preparing for the deep dives that would come once lyrics, visuals, and videos were released, knowing that every detail would carry potential meaning, and the anticipation was described as electric, with online communities buzzing nonstop about the possibilities. By the time the dust settled from the initial announcement, one thing was clear. The Life of a Showgirl had already succeeded in generating massive interest long before any music reached the public, and Swift's careful orchestration of clues had once again proven her ability to dominate cultural conversation through storytelling, symbolism, and strategic silence. Subscribe to catch the moment the first song finally drops.